Oh boy, can't wait to climb on last day. Surely nothing can go wrong with this plan. I guess this is the account review, but yeah, I'll go through my account, and if you have any comments on it, feel free to like toss it out, right? Blue Kise, high CP unit, right? I would say she came out maybe like a handful of times at most. Mostly against Hwayoung, LQC, and Politis. I don't think her gear needs to be this good. She could have been a lot worse, and I think she'll be just as okay. RB, I think last week I picked him a few times, but last day not really. He's one of those units where against Cleave, where they don't have any ways to defend themselves with skill nullifiers or with something like an A Ravi. He just kills him for free, and he's a force ban. Also just meant to be really high damage, right? The speed is meant to be so that against the Politis, he still cuts 50% so that he'll be at like 320-ish speed or so. Pavel, man, I know Elves is like a lot faster, but this is the fastest I got, guys. Like, it is what it is. I would say most of the time, he still works. You just gotta play him with confidence, and people will respect him like he's 300 speed. All right, we got Green Vildrid. I think his gear's okay. He's just kind of there to be a speed imprint, and if you can kill something with your Ran, he pushes up, and he presses his buttons, and things die. Kind of nice. Cleave Politis. I would say the ratio of picking Cleave Politis to a Bruiser Politis on the last day was about 8-2 for me. Having the option to pivot into a Bruiser Politis is actually really handy, so definitely really nice. Opsig. So I actually think this Opsig is turbo nice. The immunity makes it so that you can play against certain things, like for example Solitaria real well. She can't like bust you out of stealth and crowd control you. On top of that, I think the speed is good, and the damage kind of works. This will kill some people's Hwayoung with no attack buff, but not everybody's. Caesarea, I would say throughout the week throughout the season rather, she's used quite a bit, right? But when you play last week, you're less likely to play these like combo oriented teams, and you're more likely to play a lot more standard and fundamental teams. And like combo based hero like Caesarea, where she needs setup, I just see a lot less play. Like, I think for this build, what I prefer is like this is speed tuned to the speed I play at, which is about 305 to 310 speed. Over 150 effectiveness and over like 5400 attack. Because if you're too low on attack, right, you actually just lack a lot of kill pressure. I think Landy is also really important this season. A lot of times I kind of defaulted to picking Spectre Tenebria, and I don't think I gave Landy enough of a shot because like, even though she could get busted out of stealth, right, being on Guiding Light and whatnot, Landy being able to play into a Ran APOC draft, especially where they don't full cleave you, is such a powerful asset. I'm not gonna lie, I picked this unit a grand total of 0 times, even though I think last week is very buff oriented, but I think in standard, she doesn't provide enough value. The only person I've seen successfully being able to pull off a Bryceria draft was Nico Nikoni against myself, and he plays a very tanky version with no damage and just a lot of effectiveness. I think like this season, she's not very good, just especially for last week where she's just way too tanky. And then this is the Spectre Tenebria I've been playing all season. It's probably like the best geared unit on my account. I think last day, one problem I had was I relied on Spectre Tenebria a little bit too much, to the point where I could have picked Landy instead, but I played it too safe and I picked Spectre Tenebria, and they picked Landy against me instead. And I think that gave my opponent a better draft. Probably part of my issue this season was not learning the correct timing, when to pick Stenny and when to pick Landy or something like that. And I think that's very important. My opinion on this unit hasn't changed. I still think this is the best 5th pick in the game. If you're running 2 support units that are very fast and your opponent has no ways to kind of cut that, this instantly turns any standard or aggro comp into a cleave, and I think she's so strong. And as always, like, she carries her own books just to enable that cleave. Okay, so this is the one unit I've been hiding for like 3-4 weeks now. I've hesitated to show his stats. I would say this Ran is really it's really good at killing Politis. It's decent at killing Spectre Tenebrius. Man, this unit is so goddamn strong. Like, I don't know what else to say. If you have like a good one, I think I'm missing 3 speed to be considered a real Ran by like, you know, legend players. So sometimes, you know, we get outsped by Peyra, Sometimes we get outsped by Acid. Like, it happens, right? It is what it is. Being able to field one with so much damage is, it's a lot of fun, right? Two, APOC Ran is just really strong. Because Closer Charles, I think he didn't see that much play last day. He came out a few times. I would say, I think I drafted him maybe like 5-6 times, and I've lost like twice. Overall, still really strong. I dropped his speed by quite a bit, but he's decently bulky. Hua Young. So for last day, I actually made her a lot tankier. I think she needs to be tanky for last day because games are a lot more standard. So if you remember, right? Previously, we had Hua Young at like 10.5k HP, 1500 defense, right? And like 250 speed. We basically just traded 20 speed for 3000 HP. And I think for last day, it's kind of important to have that. And I would say for last day, the tooth really mattered, the high attack really mattered, and the bulk actually did matter quite a bit. Strays. I think this build was picked one time last week and we won. And then last day, it was just, I didn't have the presence of mind to draft him. This is on the Vinny build where he's acid proof. So against like slightly shittier acids, he's too bulky, especially with Draco play, to just be one tapped. And the damage is like, okay. I would say high attack, like low crit damage, kind of hurts you when you're hitting the additional units, but on the main unit, you'll still kill them anyway. This unit, not picked last day. Not my playstyle. She's picked against me a bunch, and she almost always forces a ban against stuff like Diane Amelia. I hate playing against her. I hate playing with her. She feels pretty unreliable. I prefer Politis and playing combos with Politis. A. Coley, I think throughout the season, she was drafted a few times against Hua Young APOC drafts, but she's not really drafted last day. I think she's kind of too gimmicky of a unit for last day. Definitely like very vulnerable to being knocked out of stealth. So, Green Sid, I played this a lot throughout the season, and like especially earlier on in the preseason, right? But like I feel like the later we got into the season, the harder it was to draft him, especially just because I couldn't race anymore. The more you have to play against like real top players, man, you just need a faster Green Sid. It is what it is. What can I say? But I think in like ETA drafts, right? I think in ETA drafts, it's still good to have at least one of him, like one of the speed imprints, to kind of have him be able to imprint and race against acids. All right, this Millum is actually turbo cracked. You wouldn't think much of the build by just looking at it. But last day, she actually kind of carried every single game she was in, especially with A. Ross. Oh my god, is she good. Let me tell you guys, okay? Against specifically Chinese players who pick Archdemon Mercedes, and they like to not build crit on that motherfucker, okay? They don't build crit on their Archdemon, they get punished by this all day. They play A. Ross into this, she slaps back. They play Hand Guy into this, she slaps back. Oh, she is so nice last day, man. Especially if you get an Amelia in. Dude, Amelia plus Book plus her is so good. C-Dom, it's just a unit that works. A lot of times, you do a Ran APOC draft and they make themselves very submissive and cleavable. What you do is you slam C-Dom plus Pavel, and they're pretty much just guaranteed to be dead. Yeah, I would say like she's mostly only drafted when I have Ran and Pavel. Okay, Rimuru, this unit is like turbo strong. I would say this Merciless Glutton is really nice because, especially in a really aggressive meta where he could just pants grab something, kill them, and a CR pushes your entire team, right? You guys remember that Frenzy during the preseason when they tested if something kills, it's just like Sash built in, right? And a lot of people swapped a high damage Rimuru for that. This is basically a build for the same reason. When the S2 procs, and something dies, you CR push your entire team, and it's just really nice. I had this build ready for like last week, but I think I only drafted her very rarely throughout the season, like even less than some other heroes that you might not even expect. I would say her job's mostly replaced by Arya. Arya is just such a better hero right now. I also still have my T-Surin build. This is anti-cleave tech. Unfortunately, like just didn't draft her a whole bunch. And when I say that, I mean I didn't draft her a single time, but hey, you won't be catching me, you know, having something not prepared when I could have had it prepared. Acid was great this season. I don't think he's the fastest. It's kind of where my speed gear is at. But the speed lets him just slam into a lot of things, right? Kisei, Fire Kawarik, Cleave Politis. And I don't want to move these boosts from him because he's one of the best characters with flat attack in the game. So this is very high roll flat attack, so we just keep it on Acid. Watcher. I think this build is functional. It's not on great gear, but it's gear that works. I think a lot of Cleaver prefer him to be faster, but at this speed, I think he just barely works for me. Arya, okay. Arya is lit this season, man. Arya is a crazy hero. A lot of times against things that she shouldn't be working against, dude, she works like a charm. Plus 29. Oh, so see, Keck W, right? Like you think like I'm out of charms, but it's almost as if like we're purposefully keeping it at plus 29 because the APOC Ravi needs the more important piece. And it's almost like a lot of people don't read this last line. This artifact only applies to one hero within a party. And it's almost as if like you want your APOC to have the better artifact than your Arya no matter what. Okay, AOL, you just run the cringe AOL, man. I think this unit is too premium. I'm terrible at playing around her. I'm terrible at playing her. But the times where I did whip her out, I think she did so much work. Especially with this. You play her as an aggro hero, and if you get to keep Stenny or Huaya on your team, the Soul Burn just lets you make pretty big plays. You can kill things you don't expect to kill. She's meant to be slow so that other openers go first and then you strip their buffs. MLV, he's so nerfed for last day. I'm not gonna even show his gear. He just, sometimes if I forget a Ben Bellion, which literally never happens, he kind of comes out. That's it. Okay, this unit, unironically, I think a lot of people forget why she used to be one of the best units in the game. A lot of times people pick A-Ross and Dien and think they're safe with no immunity. Bro, enjoy crowd control for days. She's actually so much value, like chef's kiss. Like a few games where she came out, like mwah, automatic wins. You basically free games. A-Ross, I actually think this unit is so nuts right now. I don't think he needed a buff, especially with FCC losing her like meta knight spot because of the DJB buff, but the fact that he got one is so crazy. Because he protects a lot of units versus Huayang and Rimuru, which I think is like kind of a big problem in this meta, right? And on top of that, if you have one really good carry, he just really tempos up your team. Yeah, I think like this week, A-Ross really reminded people why he's the main character of this game. He's crazy. Hand Guy. I think I used Hand Guy a lot less this season, so his gear kind of got nerfed over time. But the one thing that's really important about him is that if you run him decently fast, he can enable aggro like almost all the time, no matter what. And I think if you make an A-Ross like, or not an A-Ross, if you make a Hand Guy like 270, like that same set of gear could be used to make a C. Lilius like close to 300. His base speed is just terrible. Yeah, I don't like playing C. Lilius, so I kind of sacked my C. Lilius for this build. Was it the Soul Weaver buff that made Hand Guy fall off a bit this season? Just a bit. I think the AOL brought him back, right? Because all the Soul Weavers kind of sped up a little bit, if you think about it, right? So Soul Weavers sped up, right? At the cost of their F-Res, because nobody wants to drop bulk on their Soul Weaver. So a lot of people have no F-Res on their Soul Weaver. So because of that, right? AOL came back quite a bit, especially this type of build. And to stop this type of stuff, you really just want a Hand Guy, right? And last week, I would definitely say he was a lot more relevant. Last week, it was him versus DN, right? Especially today. Amelia kind of lost a lot of power, I feel like. C. Lilius. I turbo nerfed this unit because I don't like playing against her. Even though I like playing her, I hated playing against her so much, I'd just rather pre-ban her. So she's kind of out for me. I think goal for next season for me is to kind of unleash her so I don't have to pre-ban her and just try to get better at playing against her. Because I feel like that's kind of part of what held me back this season. Troublemaker Crozet. I think this is the best anti-cleave knight in the game. I've said that for like almost a full year now. My opinion hasn't changed. Anytime you smell cleave coming, you draft him with your APOC Ravi, and it's almost as if it's impossible for you to die to cleave. I mean, it is possible, but it's just, you have so much ways to come back with both of these units. And then obviously we use the 40% CR push E. This is just so strong. Sage. This unit is honestly just a cockroach. When you get cleaved, you pick them, and if your opponent doesn't ban them, they're kind of in for it, you know what I mean? Basically, especially this ability just makes it so hard for cleavers to chain their turns together, because no matter what, he has a high chance of cutting them, like with the 20% CR push every time your opponent takes a turn. Flat HP doesn't really matter. His base HP is pretty bad. So you're not losing much by running a flat HP ring. Yeah, I think he kind of needs like 200 something res, right? And we're a little bit short, so this kind of just fills up that slot. Carrot. I picked this a few times throughout the season. Pretty much none last week. I think she's too slow. But I think her gear's okay. I think if you play pretty aggressively, you'd want a stat line that looks like this. But if you play slower, you drop 30 speed, and you go a lot higher defense. I think high attack is kind of necessary on her nowadays, and you still run about 40 effectiveness. All right, Judge. Okay, I will say though, this hero actually got bodied by the plus 15 Soul Weaver speed. If you guys remember earlier on this season, and especially last season, she was really good against the hand guy drafts, right? This season, bro, she's terrible. Dien reasonably outspeeds her. Amelia outspeeds her most of the time, and you'll see like later when I get to my Dien and Amelia. You're almost never scared of this hero, especially if you have like a fast Soul Weaver. Yeah, and especially like if you run like a Ran or something, like what does this hero even do, man? But still, you keep her on gear. Sometimes she comes out. Didn't really draft her last day. Okay, Destina though, this is a hero I drafted a lot last day. Especially when people try to play AOL with low damage teams, she comes out and she just kind of keeps your team in there. So I think like with this much res, she's probably better on Shamadra staff. I know a lot of people like to run her a bit faster with less res, and they just run Bastion of Hope, and I think that's viable too. I just think whenever Destina comes out for me, she's a lot slower. My games don't like tend to last a lot longer, right? So I just like this for the sustain. Degen Polly, I actually drafted this 0 times during the season, and then last week, I actually drafted her like, I think I mentioned this earlier, right? About 2 times every 10 times this hero came out. Especially when people want to make plays with like Dien into Hua Yang to kick something, right? You just drop one of these and there's this chance she just chokes out the entire game. She just stuns so many things. They have no cleanse on their team. Dien presses S2, CR pushes, boom, suddenly it's a Crown Politis, and they just lose their entire game because no cleanse. I still really like the build. Designer Lilibet. This unit is actually so strong right now, especially because so many people like to play Ran. She's one of the default units you pick into Ran. Even against Ran APOC, admittedly she's less good against APOC, right? But she still has silence. She still has a turn delay, which can kind of delay a cleave team's like revive with the APOC. I think she's really good right now. Yeah, and especially with like Azure Comet, right? She just randomly starts CR cutting things you would never expect her to CR cut. Really good build. All right, this is my APOC Ravi. This is just, I really don't have much to say. This is a really strong build. This is the build me and 2 guildmates spent like almost 2 hours in a Discord call, like trying to math out. Yeah, and I think this build is like turbo strong. A lot of times, like I had an older build, right? And I would say things that I used to only be able to kill at 3 stacks, now this build kills at 2 stacks. It's really gross. Holiday Yufine, this unit's just geared. I think I used to draft her a lot against things that debuff, but now it's kind of meh. Lot more things you can draft into that, right? You can draft Hand Guy, you can draft Designer Lilibet, you can draft Destina, right? Those are 3 units I've been drafting way more often than her because she's very weak into AOL, and AOL I would say is the most common control unit right now. I think a lot of you guys already know what my DM looks like. She's just fast, decently bulky. You guys know when people pick Ran APOC, right? Against a lot of crab gamers, I just picked this DN and I outspeed their Ran. It's happened more times than I'm proud to admit. So also again, right, flat HP on units that don't have great base HP, not the worst loss. As long as their speed res, we take those. Why this artifact over Magaraha? Back during the season when I used to play more aggro and more CR manipulation with stuff like Closer Charles and Ida, I ran Magaraha's Tome. In fact, I should still have one on standby. I have this one on standby that I was ready to max at any time if it came up to it, right? But ultimately, I think Rod is just better because last day is all about playing standard and being good at standard. Blue Crow, like this unit, I don't think it needs any introductions. When Bellion and A Ravi are both banned, this unit is great. Best knight in the game. You definitely still keep. My Para's the same. I don't think my Para build's ever changed. I played her not a lot, so you can kind of argue like the gear's a little bit wasted on her last day. Because I definitely drafted DM more than I drafted this unit. But there's definitely a lot of games where by like pick 4 or pick 5, we needed a fast attack buffer that could activate Ida. Like, she's still great. Last Raider Crow, I think I picked her 1 time today and he got banned. He got banned so fast, man. Freaking ADS pickers. FCC, I still think is probably one of the best Knight in the game. I think right now she's probably the 2nd best Knight in the game. Behind A Ross. Her weakness is, you know, DJB plus Obsig, so she has to come out a lot later. But other than that, like, the games where she comes out, you have to be able to deal with her, and if not, she's force banned. For me, like, a lot of times, because I play aggro, so I just built some crit on mine. There's definitely a lot of times where this crit's helped me close out games where people don't think I can close out with just an FCC. Maid, I think I picked 1 time last week. I think right now, she's just kind of like a weaker Destina. But there's definitely people who make her work. Basically, this is a Destina that's weaker to Rimuru and a Destina that's weaker to Landy, which are 2 units that you see a lot towards the end of the season. So this unit I actually think is really nice. He has 1 use, and you pick him against Lionheart Sirmia. And that's all thanks to this. You reduce resources on Lionheart Sirmia. And the reason why it's so important, right, is if you think about it, if a Lionheart cannot S3 on her first activated turn, she can't extra turn, which means she can't reset her passive, which means she's basically really stalled out. She does nothing for like 2 more turns. If you play a lot on Lionheart Sirmia, you hate this guy. I can't go super fast on him, so I just kind of have him mid-range-ish, slightly fast. And he just kind of hit pretty hard. I didn't get to draft him though. Most people don't pick Lionheart versus me because I don't pick, you know, cringe heroes. I don't pick counter heroes. It is what it is. I think you already know where I'm going with this, but we'll talk about this after. That hero is not relevant this season, but next season, like, hey yo, watch out now. You can't grease speed on these Soul Weavers no more, bro. Okay, Ruel, I think she's just a good unit last day. Games are a lot slower, so, you know, these units that can kind of stall out the game more are generally preferred. But if you don't mind playing a slower game, I think she's great. The hot good this season, only if you played a lot of drafts where people can pick Lionheart Sirmia into you. I built one just to make sure I have one prepared, you know? I have like 1,300 pieces of gear on my account. No reason to not have one geared if I can afford to. Green Violet, I think he used to be really relevant in terms of like cleave and aggro defense. Now he sucks with minus 30% elemental disadvantage, mainly because the cleave units are like what? Caesarea, Politis, right? Politis in particular. Politis no longer loses 1v1s to Green Violet, right? A lot of times it feels like a Politis just kind of needs to get lucky to beat a Green Violet. Now I think Politis beats Green Violet very regularly. Sea Lilius is AOL tech I had built. I kind of have a Cleave Sea Lilius build. This is more of a for fun unit. I don't think she's like very serious. It's an okay unit. DJ and RB, just have one, just in case you ever think you need one. Gear's not really like worth mentioning. Same with Alencia. I just wanted to make sure I had one geared against the DM pickers, but I ended up not really picking her as well. Pillas, just on a counter build, 29 Aureus. You want to make sure she doesn't take too much damage, mainly just because my HP is decently low on her. The hit set isn't really intentional. I would say it's just more of a product of the build. Is counter better than speed? 100%. It's like she gets a lot of bonuses from units that are provoked attacking into her, right? CR push, damage reduction. You get extra stacks for your passive. So you really want to build counter on her. I would say she's borderline unplayable without counter. Kind of like Lionheart Sirmia is borderline unplayable without Lifesteal. I used to play a speed set Lionheart Sirmia with Sigurd Scythe, and I would definitely say playing a Lifesteal one, it's a different hero you're playing, man. Fire Shuri, he's just a speed imprint. You just kind of have one. Doesn't really matter what your build is. All right, real unit time. You guys ready? I think this unit is just a cross between Pillows and Blue Crow. I actually really like this unit. Especially, right, if you think about all these Soul Weavers that are taking like 3 trillion turns, right? Diane just presses a bunch of S1s after she's blown her cooldown, right? Well, now you can have a counter set plus Elbrus, right? So no matter what, Diane's going to be able to activate you, and you have a 100% chance at 115 or, you know, however much you want to build effectiveness to just provoke her. And on an unlucky streak, right, I've lost Season 5 Legend to this. A Crimson Armin provoke locked my Amelia for 4 freaking turns in a row. And you know, we were testing this unit the other day, and she was kind of doing the same, especially when you playing against Sea Lilius, right? who's very high speed, pulls a lot of S1s, right, with the dual attack. And that's going to activate your counter set that hits her, and if it doesn't hit her, it's going to activate your Elbrus. Yeah, I think like the only thing that I want to improve on her is the HP count. DJB, oh man, dude, this unit is a real terror this season, man. You guys know how much I used to love playing Peyra, and now I never pick this unit, or pick Peyra. And it's mostly because of this. Just because now with a barrier inversion, and Peyra just gets one tapped. It feels so bad to pick Peyra early, and they can just fit a DJB in their draft. A lot of times people try to pick me with Peyra. You do the same thing to them. You just DJB, and you ban their like Ida or Caesarea or whatever their middle connector unit is, and they just die. I think you run Ice Crystal or Water's Origin. Archdemon, I don't play this unit a lot, so my gear's not great, but like decently bulky. I don't have her with too much HP because like she's terrible into Rimuru and Hwayoung anyway, and you try not to do that. So most of my stats with her are in defense and attack and crit chance. Amelia, very fast unit. I think her imprint's one of the best in the game, especially for what she does, right? Like she's basically an Ox Lots if you play her aggro, and in standard she's like not, I wouldn't say as good as a DN, but she's kind of like a pseudo hand guy. Yeah, and I think I said this before. Moving to a lifesteal build kind of changed my view of this unit. I thought people were exaggerating when they said playing lifesteal build on this unit is like a different experience. Man, it really is. Yeah, it's actually a different unit entirely. You feel like, yeah, unless you get Hwayoung kicked or something, right? You just feel like you never die. In the correct drafts, this unit feels immortal. The only reason you don't like Draco, yeah, I think Proof is really nice. As long as there's an activator, she can always carry a game. She's crazy. A Solitaria, I don't play her very often, so it's kind of leftover gear. She's very squishy for her speed, and res is a little bit low. And my Elena for this season, it's not great. It's kind of like an anti-Charles tech, but I don't think anybody played Charles into me last day. Kind of like just didn't get picked. LQC, however, got picked a lot, and I think as long as you don't get attack break by like a hand guy or something, still hits a Ravi quite hard. I think I played her a small bit during the season, quite a bit the last 2 weeks, and a few times today. Yeah, I think definitely you gotta be tanky enough to make sure she doesn't die though. Yeah, and I think like a few of her pieces are really good, and it generally is very okay. So I actually unironically think Acades is a great unit when your opponent lacks damage, and you just take them to later frenzy, and you have the good carries, right? So I actually like this a lot, but I don't think that means anything because half her turns she's spending invulnerable anyway. So overall, I think she's like kind of an okay-ish unit. Not great, not good, not bad, but in certain drafts she's very powerful. Basar, I actually think should be built on every account now. Maybe not on like priority gear, but I think like for two reasons, right? One, he's really good because he can just kind of carry book and you play very aggressively with him. He kind of counters Arya, and a lot of times you draft yourself in a position where you have to ban an Arya and you already have a force ban unit. So you just draft a Basar and then he can kind of just bust a lot of units out of stealth. I actually think this is very useful for Basar. I don't think gear's spectacular, so Eden, I kind of built for anti-cleave last day. Didn't really come through. I think most of the time you just still want FCC instead. And also like Bastion of Pelucia was at one point his best artifact, and now it just gets inverted by Basar. You definitely don't want that. Fire Charlotte. I think this unit's actually really good for last day because people have a tendency to play Spectre Tenebria and Landy. I do that. I think she's great against those units, which means she's great against me. Lost a few games to her today. Didn't expect people to pick her. Very weak in SSB, but usually when they pick her, when they pull her out, they're setting up to ban my SSB last anyway. That's enough HP for Charlotte? It's not actually. I run purposely low HP on my Fire Charlotte because I have a Holy Sack. I would say Fire Charlotte has two builds. You either go high damage on Holy Sack or you go high bulk on Symbol of Unity. My Symbol of Unity is kind of just not on her, so I'm running a Holy Sack build. ML Haste basically only comes out when people pick Mei Chloe and RB. He's purposefully slow right now because he gets plus 15 speed, right? And I need to make sure he's slower than my Blue Crow, just in case if they're ever picked together. So he's just very high HP, scythes somebody, And then, you know, if RB dies or somebody needs to revive, he gets a reset. Pretty nice. Crimson Armin, build's not great. Not drafted last week, but you just have one geared. Same with Rowan. A lot of these units kind of play out the same way. Shu, no Mola, so I couldn't draft her, but I do like the build. This unit I specifically built to cleave, well, not to cleave, but to aggro 6-stuck and all the 6-stuck clones. And as it turned out, last day I just didn't queue into 6-stuck at all, so kind of unfortunate. But overall, I would say like into drafts where people play very tanky, you see the Ruel, APOC, Ravi, this build is nice. I also like this SSB a lot, so I swapped my SSB's Drink to Bloodstone, and I can only say so far I'm loving it. As it turns out, if you run your SSB as a unit that can heal other units, it's kind of a lot of gear score. Especially if you go like SSB Hand Guy A Ross or something like that, right? You end up lacking a lot of sustain, and the Bloodstone really helps you get some of that back. Yeah, if you guys remember, I used to run a Lifesteal Bloodstone Landy, but I think like a Lifesteal Bloodstone SSB is just kind of better than a Lifesteal Landy. You obviously do less damage than Drink, but if you survive longer and you just kind of bat back more with your S2, definitely like still a lot of value. Bellion, I don't think my Bellion's changed. This is my arena defense Bellion, and when I play against people that I know are cleavers, right? I will basically stop pre-banning the Bellion, and if they leave the Bellion up, usually I'm in a very advantageous position. So I really like this. So this is the unit I built over Shu for last day. I think I ended up drafting her like maybe twice, just because I don't race very often. But when you do race with her, plus 14 speed, I don't think she needs anything because there's no effect chance here. Everything's just damage dealt. You don't even need the cooldown IMO, because if you're speed imprinting and your unit lives 4 turns, you should have lost already. You should have won or lost, right? Everything is damage dealt, so it doesn't really matter. Probably work on her somewhere down the line. Man, she's actually really strong. Her S2 being able to pull a dual attack, kind of crazy. All right, Rem. You know, it's been a while since I talked about Rem, but man, this maid is still really, really good in anti-cleave. When they play stuff like Ran, when they play stuff like Politis, Ida, Peyra, right? And they have to use the AoE attacks, she just does so much damage to them. So, highly recommend. But yeah, so far, that is pretty much all of my units I play for this season. And you know, as always, right, I kind of pick an MVP for the season, especially for last day. Out of all my units, I don't know if this is gonna surprise anybody. This particular character, this chick with the axe, okay, carried me so hard last day because with the amount of damage you can output on her, she killed so many things I didn't think she was supposed to be able to kill, right? You just swing it on them, and at 1 or 2 stacks, she just does so much damage. Yeah, like this unit is great. I even think if you have the right gear, this is a destruction pen set hero. Yeah, I think she's absolutely busted this season. Like, especially towards last day where Ran APOC drafts are just like everywhere. Right, if you first pick the APOC Ravi, you could potentially stop a Ran cleave. If they didn't cleave you, you could cleave them back. So yeah, that's those are my thoughts for this season. That's kind of all I got for you guys today. I know a lot of people were asking for my stats, especially my Ran stats, and I kind of didn't show anything, especially throughout last week, just to preserve my stats. So once again, if you guys were wondering, here it is. It's not great, right? I'm hiding him for a reason. I don't think he's super fast, but he pulls through a lot of drafts. I think that's all I got for you guys today. Anything else you guys want to see on my account, you know, before I maybe like re-gear everything next week or something like that. Anything at all, guys. Hey guys, thank you for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to drop me a like and subscribe. It will really help me out. If you want to catch any of these moments live, be sure to follow me at twitch.tv/ValKyreia_. Also, catch me hanging out in my Discord, link in description. For now, I'll catch you guys in the next video. See ya.